If you're living with chronic depression, there's a good chance you've been in therapy for a while. Maybe you've tried a few different therapists who use a few different approaches. You've probably tried a lot of different variations, male therapists, female therapists, younger therapists, older therapists. Maybe you've tried more intensive programs like IOPs, like we run here at the North Star Psychological Center. Maybe you've done a partial hospitalization program. Maybe you've even done residential treatment. You might have been hospitalized a few times. And you might have even tried some of the alternative treatments designed for severe treatment-resistant depression, like TMS, ECT, ketamine. And I know that for a lot of my audience, despite all of those things, progress has been minimal. If this is you, you might be feeling very hopeless and very discouraged. Maybe you're not doing a whole lot better than you were when you started, and no one seems to know how to fix that or what you should try next. If this sounds like a reasonably accurate depiction of your treatment journey, I want you to know I've been working with people like you for about 15 years now. And obviously, everybody's story is different, everybody's circumstances are different, but my experience has been that people with what appears to be treatment-resistant depression tend to fall into at least one of 6 categories, sometimes multiple categories. Identifying which of these categories you fall into can help you figure out where to go next in your treatment journey. The first type of person who has trouble recovering from depression is the person whose brain is not physically healthy enough to feel good. Your brain is an organ, and like every organ, its main job is to keep you alive, not to make you happy. Producing feelings like joy, excitement, and contentment is one of the least important things that it does. So when your brain is not being taken care of, it becomes sort of like an electronic on power saving mode. It slows or shuts down anything that isn't critical to its functioning. You cannot live without a nervous system or a limbic system. You cannot live if your heart stops beating or if your lungs stop breathing. You can live without joy, it's just really unpleasant. Remember that your body is your brain's home. You manage the physical health of your brain by managing the physical health of your body. Your brain needs 5 basic resources to be at its best. It needs rest, blood flow, oxygen, caloric energy, and neurotransmitter homeostasis. That one was a little mouthful there. You get rest from sleep, but obviously there's a little bit more to it than that. You need to get enough sleep, which for most people is around 8 hours a night, but it isn't just about quantity, it's also about quality. The way that you can maximize your sleep quality is by going to bed and getting up at as close to the same time as possible every night and taking good care of your sleeping environment. Blood flow and oxygen to the brain come from physical activity. If you're sedentary, your brain won't be very healthy. I know that that one is really frustrating because depression causes symptoms like fatigue, lack of motivation, insomnia. It makes it hard to be physically active, but there's no way around this. If you don't get some movement in most days, if not every day, your brain will feel sluggish and slow and it won't perform very well. And under those circumstances, your ability to enjoy your life will probably be the first thing to go. Caloric energy, shockingly, comes from food. If you regularly go long periods of time, like 6 or more waking hours without eating, your brain is spending a lot of time running on empty. It has no capacity to store food or caloric energy. It can only use what's in your bloodstream. A full meal keeps your brain running for about 6 hours tops, and that's assuming it's like a reasonably sized meal that is pretty well balanced in terms of your macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. If, like a lot of people, at least a lot of people here in America, your diet is heavily skewed towards carbs, your brain will be running on empty a lot more often because carbohydrates are the most rapidly metabolizing macronutrient. They do not last very long in your system. If you struggle with overeating, you have a similar problem for a different reason. When you consume large amounts of food, your metabolism has to mobilize more blood flow to your digestive system to break down the nutrients. Guess where it pulls the blood flow from? The brain. That's why you feel sluggish and tired after a big meal. We're coming up on Thanksgiving, so you're going to hear a lot of people complain about the tryptophan in the turkey. No, you just ate too much food. And now your brain's not working very well because your body's panicking and trying to digest a ton of food. Homeostasis comes from consistency with substance intake. So anyone, controversial opinion I know, anyone with a chronic mental health condition should try to minimize or even eliminate any extraneous substances that have mood-altering properties other than prescription medication. This includes caffeine, this includes alcohol, this includes marijuana, because all of these affect your mood, and although they have a short-term boost in mood properties, they also have a corresponding dip. And so if you use these substances at all, you basically end up on this roller coaster all day long where you're either feeling highs and lows or you're reusing it over and over and over again and developing a dependence. The second type of person who has trouble recovering from depression is the person who is in an abusive relationship with themselves. You hear your own voice all day long, unless you're one of those rare people with no inner dialogue, which apparently they exist. Many of us have developed absolutely horrendous patterns of internal self-abuse. We take all the shame and judgment and criticism that this world heaps upon us, and we internalize it, and we say it to ourselves in our voice. Sometimes we even amp it up and make it even worse than where it came from. You cannot do this and enjoy good mental health. There is no escape from yourself. People try to escape themselves with money, drugs, alcohol, fame. None of it works. And you see this happen. You see this play out every day. You could have 100 million adoring followers on social media, and it would never be enough to drown out the negative voice living inside your own mind. If this is you, you have to learn how to talk back to this voice. You absolutely must be able to respond to it and provide counter arguments. Do not assume it's right. Do not let it win. Fight back every time it rears its stupid, ugly head, play its game a little bit, and start to take back ground in your own mind. The third person who has trouble recovering from depression is the person who does not know how to connect with the people around them. Having wonderful people in your life does not automatically mean that you feel connected or loved. You have to be able to access and experience the connections you have with them. And this is something that many of us, myself included, struggle to do. More often than not, when we struggle to connect with other people, it comes from early childhood wounds. Maybe you had some experiences when you were young that taught you that when you let people in, all they do is hurt you and they use your vulnerability against you. So you built a brick wall around your heart, and that wall still stands today. Or maybe someone close to you abandoned you early on in life, and you vowed to never let someone get that close again because everyone just leaves. Or maybe you just think no one will understand you, so you just don't even bother trying to be understood. You just keep it all inside and you keep it to yourself. I sympathize with these. I really do. All of these are understandable responses to hurt, but they are all going to keep you feeling stuck, alone, and disconnected. If you want to have a sense of belonging, connection, and love, as much as I hate to say it, because I have a really hard time with this one too, but you cannot have it without vulnerability. There's no way. You have to start taking that wall down and letting people see you. The fourth type of person who has trouble recovering from depression is the person whose life is devoid of sources of joy. When you haven't been able to feel anything good for a while, it's only natural that you stop trying to feel good. You just don't do anything that might feel good. You admit defeat and you resign yourself to a gray, tasteless, overcast life because it feels like there's no point in putting forth effort into trying to do things that once made you happy, even if it was only for a little bit, when they now make you feel absolutely nothing. Why put something in if you don't get anything out, right? But here's the catch-22 with that. When you stop doing anything that has even a chance of creating joy, you are perpetuating a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you end up in what I call a false depression, which is a depression that started with a chemical anhedonia that robbed you of your ability to feel anything, but now it's become a behavioral anhedonia where you don't feel anything because you aren't doing anything. And I've been there. This is not judgment. This is understanding. Try to make sure you do something that at least has the potential to produce joy every day. It won't always work, but there should always be a chance. Yes, conserve your resources, but do not accept full defeat because you do not ever know when the day will come when those clouds finally start to part a little bit. The fifth type of person who has trouble recovering from depression is the person who is obsessed with their own happiness. When we are blindsided by feelings of depression and anhedonia, sometimes we develop a little bit of a complex about it. We start to hyperanalyze our own internal state in much the same way that someone with health anxiety becomes hyper aware of their heart beating or their lungs breathing. We constantly ask ourselves questions like, Am I happy enough? Did that feel as good as it should have? Or why am I not enjoying myself right now? Or this feels pretty good, but how long is it going to last? When is this feeling going to go away? And essentially what we're doing here is we take an emotional experience and we make it like somewhere between a philosophical exercise and a math equation, which ironically sucks the joy out of life entirely. Sometimes the more we try to optimize for happiness, the less happy we become. Don't you just love brains? Constantly wondering about whether your life is good enough or whether you feel good enough will in fact make your life constantly not feel good enough. This actually happens when you obsess over anything, by the way. This isn't unique to like happiness or mental health. If you obsess over fitness, you will probably never be happy with your body. If you obsess over your car will never be fast enough or fancy enough. The more importance we place on something, the higher our standards for that thing become. Feelings like happiness and joy are not indefinitely sustainable states. They cannot just be the way you are. They are things that happen sometimes. And when you focus intensely or obsessively on trying to create as many of them as possible, you often end up having less of them because being so focused on what's happening inside of you distracts you from the sources of happiness outside of you. And the sixth type of person who has trouble recovering from depression is the person who is completely overwhelmed by the state of the world and the suffering of others. We recently had a very contentious presidential election here in the US, so this one might be very topical for some of you right now. But even if it weren't the week that it is, I feel like it's, in my opinion, pretty inarguable that the world, as in like human society, is a pretty messed up place. Maybe that's just me, I don't know, but we still have war, poverty, abuse, racism, murder, just to name a few things. This is a tough place to be, and I am the last person who would deny that fact. That's why this one is so tough to deal with. But ultimately, you have to be able to draw a boundary inside of yourself based on agency. In other words, there should be a direct correlation or relationship between how much you allow yourself to mentally and emotionally invest in a problem and how much you are able to assist with the solution of that problem. The problems that you can solve, either on your own or with help, they are probably not some of the biggest problems in the world, unless you're a very, very powerful person, but they are the only ones you can do anything about. So you need to be able to keep those mental boundaries drawn, because fully investing in the state of this world is enough to ruin anyone's brain. Obviously, these are short overviews of these 6 kind of personality types who I've seen get really, really stuck in their recovery journey. But going back to where we started, if you feel like you've tried everything, if you feel like every treatment, every therapist, every medication has let you down, I strongly suspect that you relate to at least one of the 6 topics that I shared today. Whichever one of those, whether it's 1, 2, 3, whichever one's hit you the hardest, that's what I'd encourage you to focus on right now, whether in therapy or through whatever other treatment mechanisms you have available to you, because all of these can stop you dead in your tracks. They are not talked about enough. Many people do not know how to address them, but hopefully if you at least know where your barrier is, that is the first step to overcoming it. If this was a helpful video, I hope you consider becoming a subscriber here. I make 2 videos a week. I'd love to see you again. Take care. I'll see you next time.